I'm very happy, of course, to open this event. And for your good information, let me share with you that this session will be video recorded. And to welcome you, I'm also delighted to invite the ADBI Dean and CEO, Bang Brojonegoro, to join me on stage. Dean Bang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Agnes. Very good morning, distinguished audience at the 2025 ADB Annual Meeting. I know it's quite challenging to be one of the very first events in this big annual meeting. So let me introduce myself, Bambang Brojonegoro. I'm currently the Dean and CEO of the Asian Development Bank Institute. I'm new to this position, just 3 weeks, but I have been following the work of ADBI and have been involved with all the activities for the past few years. The ADB Institute is the think tank of ADB based in Tokyo. ADBI implements policy-oriented research and develops capacity-building activities on many topics which are critical to build sustainable development in the region. Today, I'm happy to welcome you to the ADBI event titled Navigating the Digital Leap, Reimagining Work for Sustainable Prosperity. It is our pleasure to organize one of the very first events at this gathering. The objective of today's event is to highlight the challenges and potential of digital transformation and artificial intelligence to enhance labor productivity. If harnessed effectively, AI will help middle-income countries, especially in Asia, to achieve high-income status more quickly through sustained long-term growth. Humans need to cooperate with AI, and we see it as a productive partner. As we know, an economic transformation is needed to achieve high-income status, and innovations are required, implying a crucial need for a highly skilled workforce. In the context of artificial intelligence, the government's role is to ensure that the education system is aligned so that future workforce can fully take advantage of this technological advancement. Janine Berg, our first presenter, will focus on what governments can do. AI will make some tasks obsolete. Up to 40% of work hours across industries, especially those involving language, processing, and routine functions, are replaceable by artificial intelligence. Yet, other tasks can only be undertaken by humans. Our second speaker, Muhammad Jarahi, will focus on the AI-human symbiosis that could be realized. This means that education system must revise curricula and invest in teacher retraining to equip the workforce of the future. Governments also need to reskill current workers. Given Asia's size and the kind of occupation that workers have been doing, the number of workers who need reskilling can reach hundreds of millions. Also, the AI readiness gap needs to be closed. This means opening access to cloud computing, broadband internet, and stable source of electricity. It also means providing the resources needed by local companies in middle-income countries to conduct their own research and development, or R&D. We will also have a panel discussion involving Dr. Justin Diokno Sikat and Wilson White. Dr. Justin Diokno is Executive Director of ADB from Philippines, and Wilson White is the Vice President of Google for Asia, to provide perspective from an ADB developing member country, ADB itself, and practitioner from the private sector. The ADBI puts special attention to the issue of transition from middle income to a high income status, as most middle income countries are located in the Asia and Pacific. As this theme will be our focus for the next few years, please look out for our future research events and capacity building and training opportunities. For instance, we will organize a training workshop on AI and healthcare in Yokohama in August, and a training workshop on AI and education before the end of this year. Our annual conference this year will focus on regional cooperation and integration, which is particularly key aspect through which countries can grow to achieve high income status. Being a leading global think tank, we are always keen to establish partnership with like-minded organizations and support governments with knowledge and training. I sincerely hope that you will learn something by attending this event. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Din Bang Bang. So now I would like to invite our first presenter to join me on stage, Janine Berg. Janine Berg is Senior Economist and Head of the Effective Labor Institutions Unit at the International Labour Organization in Geneva. She has conducted research on the economic and social effect of labor laws, as well as provided technical assistance on policies for generating jobs and improving working conditions. Janine is the author of several books and numerous articles on employment, labor market institutions, and the digital transformation of work. Janine, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with you today, this morning. Beautiful Sunday morning here in Milan. So for a while there, when ChatGPT came out, it seemed like every day there was a new headline in the newspaper about a jobs apocalypse and the end of work, and people playing with ChatGPT and seeing how the remarkable things that it could do, and fearing really for their future or for the future of their children. So we've been engaged, even prior to that, on research on the digital transformation of work, and specifically on AI, and how it affects jobs, both in terms of the number of jobs, but also job quality, which is a really important dimension about AI that hasn't received as much attention as it probably should. So let me just start by explaining a little bit how AI can affect one's jobs. So basically, AI can automate tasks. Jobs are a bundle of tasks. This was something that economists have said for a long time. It's a very important way to think about jobs because our jobs evolve as tasks in our jobs evolve. So AI can automate tasks, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a job will disappear. A job can evolve. Now, those tasks that it can affect can be managerial tasks, and this is where we see a lot of references, for example, to algorithmic management at the workplace, or it can be a worker's particular tasks. And both of these effects of task automation have implications on job quality, on the quantity of jobs, but also on the quality of jobs. So in 2023, we put out a working paper that did an analysis of what were the possible effects of generative AI on tasks and on job quantity and job quality. And this is this is a figure that I like the best. It summarizes our analysis very well. We use the ISCO, which is the International Standard Classification on Occupations, to look at all of the different tasks within the 436 occupations within ISCO. And we used, actually, generative AI to do our analysis. It's all explained in detail in our working paper. I won't get into the methodology. But it was actually a very useful way for us to perform our research because we could understand both the strengths and the limitations of the technology. So what our research found was that if we looked at all the tasks within the major ISCO groups, and we grouped it together, we see that it's clerical support occupations, this first row, that is most affected by the risks of automation. So clerical support workers had 58% of their tasks that had a medium level of exposure to automation, and 24% of their tasks that had a high level of exposure. In contrast, other occupations, such as professionals, yes, certainly there were some tasks that could be done with this technology, but it was just 24%, and it was a medium level of exposure, which meant that there were many other tasks that couldn't be replaced by the technology. And then, of course, because we were focusing on generative AI, people who do manual labor, or people who are, for example, people in care professions, elementary occupations, those occupations aren't at risk of automation from generative AI. Now, in terms of what that meant for job loss, we use our microdata set repository at the ILO. We have microdata for 140 countries around the world, and we were able to model what this meant in terms of employment. And so this is kind of the headline figures and what could be the possible consequences. And our estimates, and again, this is not necessarily going to happen, but this is just an estimate of how many jobs really were at risk of automation around the world. So you can see here that it's 2.3% of employment around the world, with a much higher effect in high-income countries, 5.1%. Now, the reason why you had a higher impact in high-income countries is because the economies are more diversified. You have many more people in these occupations that are at risk of automation. So if you think of a low-income country, many people are in agriculture, or they're in transport. These are not occupations that would be at risk of automation. So that explains why you have these differences between across country income group levels. The other thing that you'll notice is that the orange bar is women, and you can see a much greater impact on women, and that's because women are overrepresented in clerical support occupations, particularly in high-income countries. Okay, but what we also really want to point out, and first of all, that doesn't necessarily mean, again, that these jobs are going to disappear, but that gives you an indication that it's not, the sky is not falling, it isn't a jobs apocalypse. The other thing that we really want to talk about, though, is how jobs can be transformed, because we have another large percent of jobs that are about 35% of jobs that are going to be touched in some ways, or could be touched in some ways by AI. And so what we want to do is make sure that that transformation is going to be a positive transformation for workers. So how can we be using AI, or any other technology for that matter, in our work in a way that not only makes us more productive, but also improves our working condition? And this, I think, is really the key message that I want to bring to you today. So this is actually our latest analysis. This is going to be in a paper that's coming out on May 20th, where we basically have 4 gradients of exposure, from low to high, and the red dots are basically those ones that are most at risk of automation. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about how workers can be affected in terms of how it's integrated into their workplace. So there has been a lot of discussion about algorithmic management. Essentially, what it means is that workers are interacting with the system. It is the algorithm that is deciding maybe how tasks are allocated, scheduling their work. It could be the algorithm that's monitoring their work. If you think of Microsoft Teams, for example, if it can monitor how many emails you're saying and even what you're saying in your emails, all of those activities can be monitored with AI systems. This could be bad, this could be good. It really depends on how it's used at the workplace. Here's an example from a study that was done on contact center workers in the US, Canada, and Germany. And it's a negative example, and it doesn't have to be negative, but this is a negative example of how an AI system can be imposed into a workplace in a way where they don't talk to the workers, and it's not done well. I think we've all experienced glitchy IT systems in our life, and this is an example of that. So I have so many calls that I could fix the problem. They've removed my ability to modify equipment or processes. So this is a frustrated worker who doesn't feel like they can do their job well because that they've lost that autonomy because it's been replaced by a system that is taking the decisions for them. And this is what we want to avoid. So let me switch a little bit to talk about the positive benefits and what that means then in terms of middle-income developing countries, emerging economies as well. So we took our analysis one step further, and we collaborated with the World Bank actually on a study on Latin America using data from PIAC, which has information on computer use at work as an indicator of what are the possibilities then of economies benefiting from this technology. So we know that there can be huge productivity benefits. Will they be able to take advantage of this benefit? And these are the professions where we thought that there was actually potential, not so much for automation, but actually for augmentation in the sense of they could benefit if the technology is integrated in a way that helps their productivity. But what we found was that actually in many of those occupations that could benefit, particularly here associate professionals, managerial occupations, people were actually not using computers at work, and that's the orange bar there of no computer use. So right there, you can see how the digital divide is going to stop whatever productivity could come out from this technological transformation. You have some countries, for example, Dominican Republic, where half of those workers who could be augmented aren't because they don't actually use a computer at work. So certainly that bottleneck is going to reverberate in this respect. Another issue that I wanted to touch on is about the AI ecosystem in general. We know that there are millions of workers who are behind AI system, training AI systems. Many of these workers are in Asia and in Africa. This is from an article from Inside the AI Factory from New York Magazine in 2023, but there's been many other articles on this topic, sometimes referred to as the AI value chain. Some of this is being done well, some of this is being done on digital labor platforms, and workers are not currently receiving any employment protections with that work. So they're working as independent contractors, and they don't have any employment security. And sometimes we also know that they've been exposed to content that is disturbing content that could have psychological repercussions for them. So we're not trying to say here that, what we're trying to say here is that these are jobs that actually are a new source of employment. All of this technology creates new jobs. Every time we've had technological transformations in history, there have been new sources of jobs that have been created. And so this could be a source of good jobs if we actually act together to make these good jobs. And I think this is particularly important for lower income countries that could benefit from these jobs if they're actually turned into a valuable source of employment that provides not only social protection benefits, but also labor protection benefits. Okay, so talking just a little bit about how to govern this process, which is really the focus of this annual meeting. To begin with, although we don't believe there is a jobs apocalypse, there are some jobs that are going to be at risk. We see this particularly in the case of, we can see this in translation, we can see this in some of the clerical support workers, we can see this also in the media and culture sector. There's big risks there as well. And we have to make it clear that job loss is a collective responsibility. It's not anybody's one fault that they happen to be in an occupation that then became automated. And so we need to have in place systems that protect workers in terms of income support when they do lose their jobs, but also if we can have systems where you can really make efforts to place workers within other occupations. So for example, IKEA, when they automated their customer service support system. And so they took those workers who were in the customer service roles, and they retrained them as basically interior design, providing support for interior design. So they removed them into another occupation within the organization. And so to the extent that that can be done, that is a way of mitigating job loss. But also there's an important role for governments to be investing in the jobs for the future. We know that there are labor shortages around the world in the care economy, and that because of demographic trends, the care economy is a huge source of growth. The care economy jobs tend to be undervalued. They don't tend to be very jobs that pay very well. This could be changed. This could be really the outcome of policy to change these jobs so that they could be good jobs. So this is one way of investing. But of course, also there is a role for training workers so that they can move into other professions. We also need to ensure that there's governance that makes this transformation as positive. So we think of this in three ways. The first thing is that there needs to be some sort of red lines about how AI and technology in general is used at the workplace. We want to make sure that AI is not infringing on workers' fundamental rights. All ILO member states, there's 187 countries, subscribe to the fundamental rights at work. One of these, for example, is freedom of association. We don't want to be in a situation that if your email is being moderated by your company, that any conversations, for example, with your trade union representative would be monitored and would lead to dismissal. This would be something that would be infringing on workers' fundamental rights. Also, discrimination is an important issue as well. So there needs to be some minimum regulation in place to protect workers' fundamental rights. But then we also need to think about how can we be using the technology in a sense, how can we have workers engaged in the process at the workplace to make sure that the integration of technology is done in a positive way that benefits working conditions. And so here there's an important role for collective negotiation in those countries where you have some sort of trade union representation, or in the absence of that, an important role also for labor administration. So this is something that labor inspectorates should be trained on, so that we know how to monitor these systems. And then finally, even if you, in the absence of collective negotiation, to what extent can you be integrating workers in this process? So this doesn't have to be through a trade union. You can just have high engagement workplaces where you involve workers in the design of these systems and their integration, so that that call center worker that I spoke about earlier in my presentation, had that worker been involved and those workers been involved in the design of the system, it would have been put in place in a way that didn't take away their autonomy and actually empowered them more, and ultimately would have led to greater productivity for those workers. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janine. So now
Can you hear me? I'm gonna walk and be intimidating. So, all right. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Janine. Fantastic. I can build upon a lot of things you said earlier. I have to say I'm jet lagged, and some of the things I'm gonna say may not make sense. Not to say that in normal time, whatever I say makes sense. So I'm gonna look over some of the current narratives. I'm not saying necessarily dominant, but these are common understanding, visions of AI in organizations. I'm looking at the organization, the way that AI is being used in the workforce, particularly knowledge work. And that is the most interesting context of AI use today. So the first one is the dominance of these two perspectives. And you've seen them, like a lot of things you alluded to is about techno-optimism. A lot of people are gonna lose jobs. Techno-skepticism. AI is gonna come after us, Terminator, singularity coming out, basically getting rid of humans in the workforce, outside of the workforce. The opposite is techno-optimism. 2 weeks ago, Bill Gates said in a late night show that he envisioned a future in 10 years that we'll be working only 2 days a week. AI is gonna do the rest for us. Well, I don't know what we're gonna do the rest of the week, but probably chilling somewhere. So that is techno-optimism. The reality is something in between. I don't think the sky is gonna fall. I don't think we're gonna be working 2 days a week. And these two guys, these two camps, one of the problems is they talk past each other. And the second problem here is they're different, but they have a commonality. And the commonality is AI is seen as source of existential threat or opportunity. And the picture I'm gonna draw today is a little bit more complicated than these two perspectives. All right, the second dominant narrative is what I call efficiency narrative. This narrative perspective about AI has some really important merit because we've seen efficiency as one of the major benefits of AI systems. For example, when you apply for credit cards, let's assume the situation that 50,000 people put in application at the same time on Amex website, American Express. How many humans do you need to handle that number of applications? Probably 50,000 people. An AI system, in theory, can handle all of them momentarily. This is what I call efficiency at a scale. Algorithmic systems are amazing in providing that type of efficiency. And we lost that game for many years as humans. So this is a very common narrative, bringing AI for automation, efficiency, but there is a catch to this perspective if it's taken into an extreme. And often in the workforce, what I've seen in organizations over many years, this is not just about this round of AI, this translates into kicking human out of their job, automating human away. That's the terminology that is often affiliated with efficiency narrative. All right, who knows who that guy is? Yeah, I do have it up there, Turing, Alan Turing. This person is important because he's one of the founding fathers of AI, a very important, salient person in the history of computer science. And he came up with this very simple benchmark that today is still very important in computational sciences. I'm not saying every computer science professor or every technical person is driven by this, but this is still a very big deal in how research in computer science developments are being done. So the Turing test says person A watching two performances from two, basically not knowing where they come from. If the performance of the AI or the machine is seen as similar as the performance of the person B from the perspective of person A, the computer, the machine has fulfilled the Turing test. That is seen over the years an ideal in computational sciences. If the machine, this is an implicit outcome of Turing test or Turing benchmark. If the machine is able to mimic humans, that is a successful performance. All right, this has implication, good and bad. We've been designing systems that are being very, very human-like, but the problem here is the goal of system is mimicking humans. Another thing in computational sciences that is very aligned with Turing test, and I'll bring it back to the efficiency narrative, is what we call, I don't call it, the computer scientists call it the last mile problem. In end-to-end systems, when we are designing system, there is always a last mile. What is the last mile? Wilson, you study computer science. Yes, and there is a problem. Computer scientists, the sentiment is a problem, and there is someone sitting there, and that someone is a human. That is a source of problem. So let's kick out that last mile problem. These are visions for designing and implementing systems in organizations. Now, what can go wrong? The answer, simple answer, is a lot. We've got 30, 40 years of research in organizations, in management science, information systems, showing this perspective that is only focused on efficiency and driving human away can be quite problematic. I'll use 2 dimensions to explain that. So my perspective is techno-realism. Techno-realism falls between techno-optimism and techno-skepticism. And this is my golden formula. I'm going to patent it. I don't know if you can do that. I cannot. All right. So based on 2 important dimensions, whether technology is feasible, technologically feasible, this is an overhyped conversation. AI is coming out of, AI coming out and becoming singular. A lot of things I hear is not technologically feasible. People do not understand, for example, when we are talking about large language models, these systems learn from the language. As humans, a lot of our knowledge is not embodied, is not embedded in our language. So that's number 1. The second problem is this reality of organizations and workforces, particularly knowledge work. It's very complicated. A lot of affordances that are assigned to AI systems, automation, these are not organizationally feasible. And they can actually hurt over long term, even the bottom line of the organization. Efficiency, if is the only driver of implementation and use of these systems, can be quite problematic. So let me explain what we mean by social reality to make it more concrete. So this is an example, a real example from a unit within a petroleum company. 2 different images from the same unit. One is, I would call kind of CAT scan. The other one is MRI of the same organizational unit. The left is what? Org chart. It shows the formal relationships. Who is the most important person on the org chart? Jones. He's this SVP in that department, exploitation, if I'm not mistaken. This is a real study. The names are anonymized. The right is the information flow, the informal social network or social fabric of this department. This is a knowledge-intensive organizational unit where these things are really important. Who talks to whom? Who is the most important person here? Because he's made yellow? So there is a very simple heuristic in social network analysis. Remove that person, see what's going to happen to the organizational, to the configuration of the network. So let's start with Mr. Jones. If you remove him, what's going to happen? Nothing much. He's unfortunately, right? If you remove Cole, something really big is going to happen. What is the biggest impact? Exactly. You'll have two parts of the network that go disconnect. This person is what we call boundary spanners. All right, look at Cole's position in the formal structure of the organization. What can you tell about him? He's not very important, right? So that is the problem. I don't know what I did. All right, so this is the formal structure, the picture on the left. Now, this is a common story in many organizations. We look at one of these C people, and we do formal business process analysis. We decide that one of these guys is not making really big impact in the formal process of the organization, is insignificant. Let's use a bot, or fashionable terminology today is AI agent, to replace that person, all right? And this is a very common story. We've seen it for 30, 40 years. It's not just driven by AI of today. Congratulations, you just replaced Mr. Cole, right? That's quite possible because you never look at the real social fabric of the organization. One of the major boundary spanners are not just there to chit-chat with people. They are some of the most important roles in knowledge-intensive organizations. They get a lot of benefits. They are connectors to different parts of the organizations. All right, so what is the alternative perspective? It's something that I've been terming for many years, what I've been calling human-AI symbiosis. What are the principles of human-AI symbiosis? Number one, we don't need to replace each other. We don't need to mimic each other. AI system is not there. The best approach is using AI system to do things that we are not able to do. We, as humans and AI system, we do have complementary skills, complementary advantages. The synergy lies if we bring these complementary skills to the table, not replacing each other. The term that I really like from your presentation, augmentation, rather than automation. Automation is inevitable. A lot of jobs, a lot of tasks will be automated, particularly tasks. But the value of AI is learning technology, adopting technology lies in augmenting us as human, make us better performance. Two types of augmentation impact comes from AI system. They're not necessarily the same. Augmenting the process, augmenting humans. You might be using ChatGPT to write better emails, but you may not learn. If you learn better professional language, that is when you're augmented as a human capital. And we can definitely augment AI systems. AI systems are learning technology. In most cases, AI systems are very powerful if the co-learning happens. That is a very important basis of human-AI symbiosis. Another thought that I want to leave you with is competition is inevitable. We're going to compete, but we do not need to replace each other. So this is the picture that we drew in this article published in Harvard Business Review 2023. Look at the picture on the top. So the relationship between us and AI systems is what they're called co-opetition. It's not just competition, it's not just cooperation, it's both. And that means different set of skills. There are takeaways for educating the next generation of knowledge workers. The middle is what I call human-AI partnership or human-AI symbiosis. We're working together. In that partnership, each of us is working really closely with the other partners. AI systems are going to stay. AI systems are not just a hype. We have to work closely with AI systems through a partnership, right? That's the middle. But that's just part of the story. We have to provide constantly, as humans, we are talking about humans. I'm not a designer of AI system. The same goes for the AI systems. We have to provide what I call competitive skills and competitive advantage. The minute that you do something that is not competitive in relation to our AI partners, you are not really relevant in that relationship. So in the US, we do have these spelling bees competition. The first time I watched these, I wrapped my head and I said, why are we doing this? You know, spelling bees are like these very complicated words, I don't know, 15 characters that you have to spell. I think we lost that game 15 years ago. Yes, that's a very good cognitive, practice, but why do we need to spell some really complicated words, right? Or these kids in the high schools that do these really complicated multiplication, right? 6 digits multiplied by 6 digits. Why should we do that? A very simple calculator does that. So that is a skill that we lost, that's not the source of our competitive advantage. Now, using that very simple picture, I draw your attention to these 4 quadrants, particularly the top, the dark orange, right? Because that is something relevant to our conversation. Humans, what is the human cooperative skills and competitive skills based on the picture of co-opetition? There are things that we can do a lot better than, that's our inherent capabilities, what I call competitive advantage. Emotional intelligence. AI systems are not sentient. AI systems are penetrating some of our emotional intelligence. ChatGPT can figure out you're happy, you're not happy. Image recognition can look at the gestures of your face and tell you're probably today a bit different. But that's not the level of emotional intelligence as humans we possess. I'll touch upon some of these in the panel discussion. But also we have to provide cooperative skills. The horse has left the barn. We can go back to 5 years ago. This is a very important message for a lot of organizations, for a lot of, as an institution, as an educational institution, a lot of professors, a lot of administrations are looking for blocking these systems, like bringing students with paper to write on. I don't think these are just good for the time being. These are reactionary measures. We need to come into terms with these technologies and specifically how can we get most performance out of our partners? And what are the areas that they cannot really perform? So AI literacy, I'm gonna again, focus more on AI literacy in the panel conversation. Algorithmic communication, the very simple manifestation of this is prompt engineering. And I don't like that terminology because engineering means, you're engineering something. That is more complicated than that. How can we shake the system to get most performance or most relevant performance out of these systems? We know that a large language model is a state-of-the-art AI system. This applies to other stochastic AI systems that are unpredictable in their performance. When they go out of the lab, their performance is unpredictable in some really interesting and some really crazy manners, right? They can come up with what we call hallucinations. How can I, as a knowledge workers, how can I understand how I use the AI system in a way that is beneficial for my organization? There's this very interesting case. We do have, unfortunately in our field, someone who is an expert in misinformation, disinformation from Stanford University. He recently perjured himself by submitting an expert document to the court as a witness, as an expert witness, where there were numbers of made-up references. And where do these references come from? From ChatGPT, right? The professor who is a world-class professor in this information, you can actually, Google it, perjured himself by submitting something that is non-factual, not understanding the limits of ChatGPT in making things up, right? So it can be something really catastrophic, but in everyday work, we need to pay attention to the combination of cooperative and competitive skills. Am I right on the time? All right, cool. This is the first time I finished before, the timeline. Thank you so much.
Now I would like to call our moderator and all the presenters and the panelists to come on stage. So today our moderator is Byung-Sik Jung. Byung-Sik Jung joined ADBI as Deputy Dean in September 2024. Prior to joining ADBI, he was the Director General for International Tax in the Ministry of Economy and Finance in the Republic of Korea. He also worked for the International Finance Bureau in the Ministry of Economy and Finance as Deputy Director General and served as a co-chair of the G20 International Finance Architecture Working Group. He was responsible for the negotiations for various tax treaties and numerous free trade agreements between the Republic of Korea and other countries. Then I'm also happy to welcome two additional panelists. So first, Wilson White, who is Vice President, Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google. Welcome, Wilson. With 20 years of experience as an engineer and technology attorney, Wilson White has used his multidisciplinary background and expertise to provide policymakers, regulators, and other stakeholders with thought leadership on the rapidly growing and changing technology landscape and the societal implications of emerging technologies. Finally, let me invite Dr. Justin Diognosika to join us. Justin is Executive Director at the ADB. You represent the Philippines, Kazakhstan, the Maldives, Marshall Islands, Mongolia, Pakistan, and Timor-Leste, a broad and diverse list of countries. And before joining ADB, Justin was a research fellow at the Philippine Government Policy Think Tank, Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Our academic and professional experience has focused on public sector economics and political economy. So I would like also to invite Janine and Mohammed to join them on stage. And now the panel discussion can start. So Deputy Dean Jung, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you so much. Actually, we had a great presentation this time from Janet and Mohammed, really highlighting the challenges faced by the country, especially middle-income countries, and also strong potential of AI digital transformations. Now, let's discuss about this AI technology. Let me ask first to Wilsons. More broadly, since you are representing from global major tech companies, would you you share your perspective on the social implication of AI digital transformation, especially for middle-income countries in Asia and the Pacific?
Very good question. Let me first say good morning to everyone and a big thank you to ADBI for hosting this very timely and very important discussion, but also for giving us an opportunity to participate. Let me also just give deep appreciation to Janine and Mohammed. Those were great, I think, interventions. I learned a lot, and I think it's really adding to the conversation. And then finally, because Google is an advertising company, let me say that I'm actually using my Google Pixel as part of my agent here for my notes. But look, I believe that AI technology is a foundational enabler to progress. If you just look at Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information and to make it universally accessible and useful, that emphasis on universality is really the core of what we do. So at Google, we are investing in making our products better, more efficient, more useful, more relevant to people's lives. And not just in developed economies, but also middle income and emerging economies as well. Some of our products like Google Search or Maps or YouTube, they're really being integrated into people's daily lives every day around the world. And if you step back and look at, for example, look at YouTube from a development perspective, YouTube really is a supplemental learning tool. People are using this tool to educate themselves and to train themselves. So from a development perspective, we think that's quite useful. But when you introduce AI into the mix, it will revolutionize things. As Mohammed and Janine alluded to in their presentations, we at Google, we believe AI is a once-in-a-generation transformative general technology, I think, general purpose technology that has the potential to uplift economies and to really improve people's lives. At the same time, it also has the opportunity to address some of society's most pressing challenges. And I love the symbiosis mantra that Muhammad uses, because AI really can help us as a global society address some of these challenges that's vexed us since the advent of humankind. But more importantly, for us, when we think about the development and deployment of AI, we like to say we need to be bold, responsible, and to do it together. And what we mean by that, in terms of being bold, we need to push the bounds of the technology. We need to have bleeding edge and cutting edge research so we can figure out how best to deploy AI in ways that really solve problems. But in order to do that, we must do that in a responsible way. We need to do that with an open eye towards some of the new risks that are introduced as part of deploying this technology. We talked a bit about the risk in the employment sector, but there are other risks that as a society we need to wrestle with. And we need to do that together. It's not just the private sector, it's not just the technology companies. It requires academia and civil society and governments, all of us, to work together to ensure that we're deploying this technology in the most responsible ways. But look, the rapid development and deployment of this technology will create new issues and new risks. I'll call out a couple that I've been doing a lot of thinking about here in the Asia Pacific region. Not just the developed markets here, but also the middle income and low income markets here. So one is around financial fraud. This is an issue that's emerging as one of the most pressing issues for governments, certainly in the Asia Pacific region, but around the world. And what's really happening here is very sophisticated, very well-funded criminal organizations, for the most part, are taking advantage of advanced technologies like AI to supercharge their criminal activity. And it's causing devastating economic impact on some of our most vulnerable citizens around the world. And so one of the things that we've been thinking about is, like, we shouldn't attack this problem as a law enforcement problem. Yes, these are criminal organizations that are doing this for the most part, but it's not just relegated to law enforcement to solve. It's going to require a bigger participation from the private sector, from technology companies, from civil society, from other government stakeholders, to think of this problem holistically. Because these criminals are not confined to a single platform. They're not confined to a single country or border. They're not confined to a single tactic. So we really need an all-of-society approach to this. And that's one of the things that we've been thinking about. The other is the AI divide, which is the potential to exacerbate what is already a digital divide and to exacerbate existing inequalities. So for us, AI literacy, digital literacy is going to be a big part of how we close that divide. So that's how we're thinking holistically about how we're helping middle and low income economies.
Thank you so much. He also touched upon not only the opportunity, but also challenges from the perspective of social implication from the AI on our human lives. Thank you so much. Then, considering those opportunity and challenges, how can government reap the benefits of these technology innovations?
So look, as I mentioned, AI does have the potential to be an uplifting force in economies around the world. And I'm very happy to be in this discussion because between Janine's, I think, positive outlook on a more realistic look on AI's impact on jobs and Mohammed's view of the cooperation between humans and AI, it's very positive. What we've been saying to governments around the world is probably a three-part approach to maximizing the benefits of AI. So first, governments can create a supportive environment around investment in AI infrastructure. Secondly, governments can and should do more in terms of ensuring that the workforce is ready for an AI future. And then thirdly, governments should create policy and legal frameworks that not only safeguard against some of the risk of the technology, but also incentivize innovation to ensure that the benefits of AI are shared as widely as possible. And just let me double click a bit on those three. On the point around investment in AI infrastructure, governments really need to encourage a significant and sustained investment in this space. Just in digital broadband, for example, it's estimated that by 2030, the investment needed on broadband penetration will exceed $400 billion US. And that's just on broadband, right? And that's only one part of the type of investments we're going to need to truly benefit from AI at scale. In terms of the workforce, right? It's our colleagues here on the panel have really delved into the fact that some tasks may be automated, some tasks may be augmented, some aspects of jobs may be augmented, some new jobs will be created. But at the core of this, we really need our workforce to be trained for that future, a future in which there's going to be rapid evolution in the nature of their work, right? So this is going to require some deep thinking about how we educate our young people, how we educate our seasoned citizens to have a lifelong learning type approach, how we are investing in AI literacy and digital literacy so folks really understand how the technology can play out. And then on the regulatory and policy frameworks, this is an area that I think is very timely now because governments around the world all want to win or at least participate in the AI race. But there's a heavy focus on the downsides of the technology. And in my personal view, not enough focus on the upside of the technology, right? So creating regulatory frameworks that put the right guardrails in place, that's great. But we do need to ensure that those policy frameworks also incentivize innovation. Because if we don't have people adopting the technology, that's going to erode trust in the technology, that's going to erode adoption, and that's also going to ultimately mitigate some of the benefits at scale that the technology can bring. So that's kind of the three-part framework that on the way we've been thinking about it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's very clear. I worked for government for 30 years. I like this kind of very straightforward, very simple the answer. Thank you so much. From the government perspective, it's very important because he came from private sector. His suggestion 3 areas: investment by the government in this area, and also the workforce, considering workers' right, and also considering the downside of the digital technology is very crucial. So please bear in mind, especially persons from the government side to this event. Thank you. Now let's invite Justin from ADB. You are representing countries at very different stages of development. Taking the example of the Philippines, what are the main challenges created by AI? What the workers are exposed to AIs, specifically focusing on Philippines?
Thank you very much, Byung-sik. And again, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much, ADBI, for inviting me here, and it's an honor to be on this panel. I'm learning a lot from them, looking forward. Now, with respect to what are the main challenges created by AI, especially in the case of the Philippines. So for you to be able to benefit in terms of productivity from the adoption of AI, I believe that there are two vital elements which we do face challenges in. First is the access to the technology, and second would be how to use it. So in the case of the Philippines, we're an archipelagic country of 7,600 islands, and access to digital infrastructure is uneven, still as of the moment, but we're working on it. Now, to be able to harness increased productivity from these infrastructure gaps must be addressed. You mentioned the digital divide earlier and the AI divide. Of course, that would create that and might exacerbate inequality, but we are working on this. Now, this would also have implications when it comes to power demand. Of course, for digital, you need power and energy. So that's one of it. The second thing I want to focus on at the same time is to be able to expand AI in the Philippines, which actually touches on what you discussed on governance. There needs to be harmonized legislation and proper regulation to maximize our national AI roadmap. So we do have a national artificial intelligence roadmap, but we're trying to strengthen it, and I'll say more about that later. So that's very important. You said upside, we talk about it, upstream work at ADB, that's how we talk about it. The regulatory and institutional framework, which is what most of my research has focused on at the think tank. Now, in addition, there is also need for education across all levels in different sectors. Absolutely, I agree, being a former professor as well. Now, how exposed are our workers to AI in the case of the Philippines? So I'm going to cite an IMF, this is an accurate citation of an IMF study in 2025 that shows that for the Philippines, the services sector will be largely impacted by the adoption of AI technology, with 1/3 of occupations being classified as highly exposed, highly low complementarity. So there are those definitions there. Now, the highest proportion of which comes from business process outsourcing, which you talked about earlier, the call center sector. At the same time, so this would be clerical work. Your slide earlier, Janine, showed clerical work. So at the same time, there are jobs that have high exposure and high complementarity, which are better positioned to leverage AI. As the nature of work evolves, potentially increasing productivity. So this could perhaps be the augmentation that was mentioned earlier. This would be primary school and secondary education teachers. So this also, at the same time, this also offers opportunity for the Philippines to move into more high-value segments such as finance and healthcare. So thank you so much.
Okay, you covered slightly touch upon the education too, but let me elaborate the Philippines educations. According to your perspective, to what extent your Philippines education strategy in aligned with the digital technology and also adoptions, especially to support labor market and human capital adjustment? Please elaborate further.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So we have several reforms that we are working on. First, we have Trabajo para sa Bayan. Trabajo would be work. This is a national employment master plan, a 10-year national employment master plan, with several strategic priorities, including improving the employability and competitiveness of Filipino workers by aligning education and training programs with industry requirements. So involving with the private sector also and getting to know what kind of jobs they need and anticipate in the future also is part of that. Encouraging upskilling and reskilling by leveraging opportunities provided by AI tools. We also have what you call the Enterprise-Based Education and Training Framework Act of 2024. So this law rationalizes the various competency-based and industry-driven training modalities to enhance the quality of training programs, aligning them with industry skills requirements. We also have Philippine Digital Workforce Competitiveness Act of 2022, which promotes public-private partnerships by including industry stakeholders in a 6-year roadmap for jobs in the World Economic Forum identified fastest-growing areas such as cloud computing, which you mentioned earlier, data analytics and AI, as well as green jobs. We also have the Department of Education, so they're responsible for our primary and secondary education levels. Digital Education 2028 to digitize and connect all of the Department of Education schools. As of now, only 69% are interconnected. We have the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document, where we also try to encourage innovations in research and development, which is mentioned several times during this session right now. We are updating our national AI strategy roadmap, which I mentioned earlier, and we have focus areas. We have focus areas for this to prepare the workforce for future jobs and also to ensure responsible rollout and governance for AI technologies. We also have lifelong learning for adaptive workforce, which was also mentioned by Wilson earlier. These strategies focus on quality, inclusive, adaptive, resilient, and future-ready education, as well as globally competitive and inclusive technical, vocational, and education training, and higher education. So we're promoting lifelong learning also at the basic education level. So enshrined in our kindergarten to 12th grade basic education curriculum is the promotion of 21st century skills that encompass learning and innovation, effective communication, information, and technology. We also try to ensure through this framework a seamless career transition and enhancing agility of the workers through the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority of the Philippines to develop a lifelong learning development framework to assure agility within the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, let me invite Janet again, because her presentation is quite crucial. But this time, let's think about concrete policy recommendations, because this is really aiming to giving policy direction to government officers. Considering your presentation, you mentioned that proactive government interventions through the consultation with a wide range of stakeholders to ensure that AI technology benefit the workforce and productivities. Would you elaborate a detail that this intervention by the government to ensure that the working conditions do not deteriorate? And how can these interventions secure the sustainable change? Please.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so there's a very important role here as government as a convener, and a convener with business, employers organizations, business organizations, and of course with workers and workers organizations as well. So too often in this debate, and it's absolutely understandable, there's been a focus so very much on investing in education, investing in infrastructure. This is a minimum requirement, and we know that needs to be done. But we can do a lot more, and government can really work as a convener to bring together social partners to ensure that the integration of technology at the workplace is done in a positive manner. So let me just give you one a little bit more abstract example, and this is at the international level. This June at the International Labor Conference, we're going to be having a 2-year standard-setting discussion on decent work in the platform economy. So this isn't AI, but of course AI is related to the platform economy. So this is an opportunity for government and social partners to come together to talk about, what are the minimum protections that we need in place for workers around the world with respect to the platform economy. This is something that can be done also at the national level. How can we be coming together to devise what regulations we need in place to ensure that technology is being integrated positively? Also to decide on what infrastructure we should be investing in. That guidance of where to invest is done best when we have this dialogue with social partners. There's an important role for business organizations to play, both as contributors in terms of paying taxes, but also in engaging in how the design of infrastructure and investments can be done. When we think of training, when training systems are designed with social partners, with employers and with workers' organizations, those training systems are much more effective. If we don't have this kind of a collaborative approach, we might end up wasting resources. We might end up having a government that invests in some sort of training, and then workers, are they supposed to pay for this training, and they're supposed to retrain themselves into new occupations, and maybe those occupations will be automated in 3 years. I mean, if you think of this from a worker's perspective, it's very scary. If you're a call center worker in the Philippines, these are scary times. Maybe people invested to learn English really well, or to learn other skills so that they could get these jobs, which were good jobs, and now they're being a risk of automation. So then what do? Do they study computer programming, but then people tell them that could be automated? So it's hard to know really what to do. And so it's really important then for all of these actors to come together to design, to really design a national strategy that's effective. With respect to fears about technology, it's workers in the Nordic countries that are less fearful of technology. Of course, everybody looks at the Nordic countries and they work very well, and it's a bit of a nirvana on earth. But they work effectively because there's strong institutions in place. People have that security, they have that income security, but they also know that that they have a role in the design of the technology at the workplace, and so that it's designed properly. And so we have to be thinking about this from all of these different angles of how to design and how to integrate technological systems that really work for the benefit of society.
Thank you so much. Indeed, Jenny came from the ILO. Normally, when it comes to government policy, we only focus on the government capacity and the directions and plan, but not thinking about the collaboration with the stakeholders. What is the stakeholders? Stakeholders only government or employers like Google? No, according to Janice, laborers, the workers, also very important stakeholders. When it comes to collaboration, we need to listen their opinions. Thank you so much for your perspective. Then let me invite Mohammed. I'm very interested in your approaches, symbiosis, human AI symbiosis, and also human AI what is that? Complementarities, co-opetition, augmentations come from the Jenny, but your mention is the symbiosis and complementarities, competitive strengths. It's quite interesting. It's really Mohammed regard AI as kind of an entity to work together, to live together with the human beings. From your perspective, complementarities between human and AI, what's your recommendation for educating human capitals? What's your the recommendation for implemented policies?
All right, so that's a very, in the US they call it, that's a very good question. That means we don't have a good answer for it. So, but as an educator, I always face this question because I want to know what is it that we're teaching to the next generation of knowledge workers. Going back to those two types of skills, cooperative, now I get self-conscious, cooperative skills and competitive skills, I think, they alluded to AI literacy as one of the most important cooperative skills. And that doesn't mean everyone becomes data scientist or machine learning professional, in their profession. Some of it, actually, I tell my students, if you are too close to the technology, that doesn't mean that you are actually immune. This technology sometimes come after, the first wave of programmers by OpenAI were dismissed because they did not need them after a while. But that means working closely in a way that you understand how the system works. I think we need to educate our students about different types of AI. AI doesn't, one of the bigger problem in conversation, in management, in policy is we take AI as one as one type of technology. AI comes in different shapes and forms. For example, we need to understand what is the difference between analytical predictive AI and generative AI. How do they bring different types of benefits and limitations? We know that generative AI systems make things up. This is something we need to teach our student. Hallucination is not a bug. It's a feature of the system's architecture. It cannot be completely removed. So understanding some of the limits and capabilities of these systems is part of what I call AI literacy and the cooperative skills. But also, really, I think in the age of AI, particularly when it comes to large language model, asking the right questions. A lot of our job is shaking, again, I like that metaphor, the system in a way that can get us the right answer. What does that mean? That means you need to have some really hardcore specialization. You need to understand your own work. Asking questions from ChatGPT in an area that you are not familiar with is very useful first foray into that area, but that is not sustainable. You need to understand your own work. So I think deep specialization moving forward in different disciplines. Even I hear all these hyped assumptions about diagnosticians, radiologists, pathologists. I work with pathologists. Pathology is very complicated. It's not like you'll come up with these voodoo technologies that will replace pathologists in a wholesale manner. So that's about cooperation. Competition, what I call competitive skills. I've worked for many years in this area of algorithmic management, how we use design systems that can somehow do some of the managerial functions. I don't think any time we will have algorithmic leadership. There is a difference between managers and leaders. There is actually a group of researchers that are working on this concept of algorithmic leadership. Leadership is a human-centered type of activity. You need to be able to, leadership is motivation, motivating other folks. I do not think machines can motivate us. As long as the receiving end benefit of these algorithms are humans, I do not think a concept like algorithmic leadership is something that is sustainable. So what we can teach our students is some of these really important soft skills, and I think the connotation of soft skill is wrong, because the soft skills are actually very difficult to master, right? Soft doesn't mean easy. Leadership, teamwork, emotional intelligence, empathy, sympathy, all of these are becoming, or just problem solving in the context of business. That requires, one of the major issues in organizations is when you have multiple stakeholders. A stakeholder's interests are sometimes the opposite of each other. If you make your employee very happy, your shareholder will be very unhappy. If you make your shareholder very happy, your customer will be very unhappy. How to strike that balance, that is not a machine doing. That is an inherent human intuitive. Intuitive doesn't mean haphazard. That means based on understanding of years of experience interacting with these customers, with the government. You guys, you're not from government, but you work with the government. Private sector, shareholders and finding the right balance. Algorithmic systems are not magic. They're very, very important. The message that we're going to take away today is AI systems are not magical. They're very, very powerful tools, but the only way that they are making high impact or bottom line impact is through the right application. And the right application is very context dependent. Every context requires different types of appropriation of these technology. That requires competitive, cooperative skills.
I think University of North Carolina is very fortunate to have you. Many audiences in the open mind when you talk about the leadership. That's the area really AI cannot replace the human beings. Yeah, we have to talk about the areas where only human can have ownerships. It's a really important session to enlighten in that perspective your attention to this area. Okay, let me invite Justin again. You are working for ADB as an executive director. Would you share in detail how ADB is supporting developing countries to move toward with these digital technologies and to create jobs? Please share your policies.
Okay, thank you so much. So the way ADB works is with each country, like in the case of the Philippines, they develop a country partnership strategy for the term of administration. So the Philippines had a recently approved country partnership strategy for 2024 to 2029. And there we have interlinked strategic priorities that were identified. And these are the three: strengthening human development, boosting economic competitiveness and building quality infrastructure, and scaling up nature-based development and disaster resilience. Now, I'll give you an example of how this is interlinked, how there would be impact on human development when natural disasters happen. So, for example, it can disrupt natural disasters. If there's a typhoon, it can disrupt schooling, leading to learning losses. And this, therefore, a resilient and digitally enabled infrastructure in schools could help manage this risk. So that's how we try to implement it and think of it in the long term when we're talking about our country partnership strategy. For industry in the Philippines, so we have identified 7 strategic sectors, from ecotourism to semiconductors. Each of these sectors requires a skilled workforce, which means upskilling today to be ready for the jobs of tomorrow. Now, education is key to enabling digital demographic dividend, especially with the adoption of digital technologies and AI. And ADB has been working with the Philippines, supporting these varied and complex issues with solutions across the full spectrum, from primary to secondary education in our basic education, kindergarten to 12th grade, education system, to our technical vocational education and training, even to higher education and lifelong learning through reskilling and upskilling. And ADB has been a partner of the Philippines since for decades now. It's the second largest recipient of ADB investments in education, and these investments combine financing with technical assistance and knowledge support. Now, one of the longest standing partnerships with ADB is what we call the Job Start Philippines program. So this was started in 2013, and we've supported this initiative to reach 30,000 at-risk youth aged 18 to 24 to help them gain soft skills. So that was the main goal: help them gain soft skills and cooperate with businesses, local businesses, in order for them to have gainful employment. In fact, just last month, I brought the board to visit Palawan, where we have a Job Start project there. And 5 of the graduates of the Job Start program were already managerial level in one of the resorts in Palawan. So this is how it happens. It started with soft skills, and then it developed onto technical skills. That's how that Job Start program is. Now, we also have, looking ahead, so we have 2 major projects that are under preparation in the Philippines with ADB. The first would be the Ascend. So we like our acronyms. I will spell it out for you. Advancing Skills, Competitiveness, and Enterprise Development. So this project will support job creation by strengthening the economic value chains of priority sectors with a strong focus on strengthened targeted skills in key sectors. This is with the Department of Trade and Industry and our Technical Education Authority. The second project would be Acquire, Advancing Climate-Smart, Quality, Inclusive, and Resilient Education. This one aligns with the Department of Education's digitalization roadmap and addresses learning losses while preparing young Filipinos for the digital world. Now, ADB's work in the education sector aims to ensure that future-oriented investments that harness digital technologies are inclusive by design. How inclusive? First, in that all citizens have skills, tools, and opportunities to strive to be a productive member of society. 2, that requires that all modalities of education, formal, informal, non-formal learning are explored. Third, skills-related interventions involve public and private sector solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Now, our precious man, Wilson, you have another questions. Because you're from the private sector, compared to other participants. What is it Google is doing to build up the AI workforce, really AI workforce for Asia Pacific region? Very specific questions.
Like the great professor from North Carolina said, that's a good question. But let me start that by saying, look, AI is both new and old, right? It all feels new to us. But Mohammed introduced many of us to Alan Turing, which is kind of almost a historical figure in this concept. And a lot of the concepts undergirding AI date back to the mid-1950s. So very old from that perspective, but it feels new. And I believe that we're actually at a pivotal moment in the development and deployment of AI. And we're already seeing some of the huge benefits of it. So at Google, we're doing some of this through our products, right? For example, AlphaFold, which some of our colleagues won a Nobel Prize for last year. We're very excited about that, woohoo. But AlphaFold can accurately predict 3D models of protein structures. And there's over 2 million researchers in over 190 countries around the world that are now using that to really push the bounds of scientific discovery, catalyzing cures for major diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's. That's amazing. Secondly, I'll say is, we have many examples of this, but I'll call out Google Translate, because I think that backs into the workforce question. But Google Translate, I'm hoping many of you use it as you travel around the world. It's a lifesaver for me. But Google Translate, we started with about 100 languages in our corpus. And it was very painstaking work to add a language here or there. But just last year alone, when we introduced AI in a meaningful way into how we develop that product, we went from 100 languages to 243 languages in just 1 year, which has really allowed more folks who are underrepresented or underconnected to be brought into the economy, to the global information infrastructure that really undergirds the economy. And so I think that kind of backs into the question around the workforce, because there's a lot of excitement about AI and what it can do and how it can actually get people into the economic game. But a lot of concerns as well, right? There's like 94% of employers. There's a study, recent study. I'm going to share this with you, Janine, because I think it works for some of the stuff that you're thinking hard about. But 94% of employers say that they're going to implement AI into their operations in the next 5 years or so. Some of them even offering premiums for AI skills. Like I think in one study, you can keep me honest here, Ingwe, but like 44% premium on salaries for having certain AI skills. So very, very interesting data points on how the employers are thinking about this. Yet, I think in that same study, like 16% of employees felt like they were not ready at all for an AI future, right? So there's a big mismatch between how employers are thinking about this and how employees are thinking about this. So in addition to our products, we know at Google that we have to do more. We have to have people ready for the AI workforce. And unfortunately, in the Asia Pacific region, like other regions around the world, that readiness is very diverse. We have a very diverse region, right? You have countries like Singapore where the AI readiness is relatively high. But you have markets like Laos or Cambodia or Myanmar where it's a very different story. So one of the things that we're trying to do here is investing in that development. So last year we introduced the AI Opportunity Fund. It's now one year anniversary of introducing that. It's a $15 million fund in partnership with Google.org, our philanthropic arm, with ADB as well as AVPN, to really invest in ensuring that workers are upskilling, attacking the digital literacy problem. And this week we're announcing 49 nonprofits who are the first to start receiving funds from this opportunity fund, who are tackling this problem in very diverse ways, really getting very local in how they are solving the challenges. But also this week, because we can do more, we're announcing an additional $12 million to the Opportunity Fund. So that's going to bring our overall commitment to $27 million focused on the Asia Pacific region. Our goal is to upskill 720,000 workers, 100,000 micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, and over 100,000 startups on this. And so that is our goal as we move forward in this. That's a couple of ways that we're trying to contribute to the upskilling and ensuring that the global workforce, particularly in the Asia Pacific region, are ready for an AI-powered economy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Wilson. It's a very important announcement, AI Opportunity Fund. That's really the fund that ADBI want to work together. So right after this meeting, there is a bilateral meeting with Dean Bambam and Wilson. Please talk about in detail how to collaborate for the future. Thank you so much. Good information. Now, I'm going to open the floor to the audience to take your questions. Please raise your hand. Okay, let me take questions all together and then the designated person to respond to the questions. Okay, please.
Good morning. Thank you for the very excellent and wide range of perspectives. I'll keep my question brief. I work for a bank in Asia called SMBC, and I chair the public sector for the region. You have a very wide group here, but you don't have government represented. And in the work that I've been doing over the last several years, and in particular in the last few years, one of the big concerns I have is governments are not sufficiently focused on building the workforce for dealing with the tsunami of change. The digital leap is a good explanation, but many of the workers don't have the muscles to make the leap, and they're going to go into a digital abyss. So my question is, what are you as stakeholders doing to work with government to bring budgets? Because governments are very focused on all the issues they faced. Workforce development, unfortunately, the money is not coming enough from governments. And I want to know, how are you bringing that to the fore of government thing? And I'm really happy ADB is spending a lot in this, but that's not enough. And I think the number of jobs being created with the jobs which are going off is not sufficient. And we have a white-collar workforce which is going to be without work in the next 10, 15 years. Thank you.
How to make a government to focus on with the limited budget on these digital technologies? Please take this question later. I'm going to take a question first and then a designated person. Just you do answer nicely. Okay, one more question.
Yeah, I'm from government. First, congratulations. I'm glad Dr. Sekata, while she's ADB ED, she spent a lot of information about what government and ADB are working on together. I'm very not alarmed. No, I am a grandfather of 2 grandchildren, aged 18 and 13. Most of the discussions seem to focus on the workforce. So we talk about reskilling, upskilling. But how do you prepare? What kind of skill set do you need to develop at primary education? I like what Muhammad mentioned, spelling bee, multiplication, etc. All those things can already be passé, no? But what work is being done to prepare the children, primary school, for the future? I know the work now is how do we preserve the status quo, meaning to say governments, private sector, and so that's really a question I would like to bring home to my grandchildren to say you're going to the right school because they're teaching the right things. So what skill sets would be relevant? Thank you.
Thank you so much for children. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the stimulating conversations. My name is Atsushi Yamanaka. I'm a senior advisor on digital transformation with JICA, Japan International. But I'm here actually. I took my vacation this week, took advantage of my wife being here, so I'm actually dependent. So just make sure that I don't get in trouble with my organizations. So it's not official capacity. There was actually a discussion about computational resources, especially I think Wilson was mentioning. But we get a lot of requests from our client countries. Can we actually support the computational resources? As well as LLM as well, local languages, sovereign LLMs. I feel a little bit queasy about these things because, first of all, hyperscale like yours, it is impossible to think about a country like Timor-Leste or Marshall Islands to actually have the similar kind of computational resources. But at the same time, they request us that. Whereas like in our organizations, including ADB, we are not very good at this kind of digital investment in a loan portfolio. By the time the specification is set, the procurement starting 2 years later, it's obsolete, right? So how do you think we can go about supporting this demand vis-a-vis hyperscale like yours? Whereas there is also another dimension, which is the governance issues, right? A lot of countries actually do not want to share their data. Data is not being free flow, like transferred in sufficient manners. So there is that dimension as well. I don't know. I have no idea the answer to that. I would like to hear the participants here. How should we actually support our client countries' needs, and how can you go about utilizing AI? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so impressed with a lot of questions. I'm going to give a strong signal not to take only one question. Okay, he already stood up.
Yes.
Okay,
No.
two person. Okay, two questions. Okay, please.
Okay, good. Thanks.
So
who going first?
My name is Jan Scholt. I'm at Leiden University. Thanks very much. Fantastic. I have pages of notes. Thanks a lot. I have one note that wasn't answered, though. You talked a lot about governance and need for governance. And you also talked a lot about how we need to make sure that the AI is controlled by us and we have an agency, that it serves us and not the other way around. Then I would expect to hear the word democracy somewhere. And I didn't. And so I was wondering whether, as you look at this governance, which has to be in good part global and in good part non-governmental, how do we make sure that the affected people participate and control? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last question.
Yes, I'm Rexon Silaban. I came from Indonesia like Pak Bang. So I'm from the labor union. So I just want to extend the Wilson White statement about the country readiness, but I want to make another workers' readiness. So most scenario is assume when we skill people, workers, so they can be adapt automatically. But I am preempted, I will tell you it's not easy. Not so many people can adapt easily to artificial intelligence. So we're talking about policy framework. I think Janine Berg will maybe can answer this, or even Muhammad. What the scenario 2 million people we don't have ability to adapt to the AI, because we have to give them also chance to live prosperity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I cannot summarize the questions because you are expert to answer. So I'm going to give you just 1 minute to answer the relevant questions. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, please, from Wilson to the Mohammed. Okay.
All right, 1 minute.
1 minute, just.
All right, let's. Well, one, thank you for the questions. Very, very engaging questions. I wish we had more time to deep dive on all of them. The point around government, I think, is really key here. I mentioned in my remarks the kind of framework that we've been trying to engage with governments on. I take the point that a lot of this is an investment question, that governments, they have other priorities, and the private sector needs to help out with that. At Google, if you remember that framework, it's investing in infrastructure, which actually leads and is helpful on the workforce point. And at Google this year, we announced that we're going to be investing $75 billion in CapEx around this, and that's following last year's investment of $59 billion. So these are astronomical numbers. We need others in the sector to do that as well. On the question around the young generation, I'm a father of young kids as well. I worry about the same things that you worry about. In addition to current workers and the transition point, with our current workers, getting them to pivot, I do think we need to take a fundamentally different approach to education. Mohammed alluded to some of this on how he's teaching his students, but this idea of lifelong learning. You're not going to go in a classroom and learn a particular topic and that's going to serve you well for the rest of your career. That's no longer a model that's going to work in a rapidly evolving environment. So I think some hard thinking around how we educate at the early stages of our education system, and that's going to take a multi-stakeholder approach to doing that. And then finally, I probably have like negative 10 seconds here, but the democracy point I think is tied to the question around smaller countries that need help here. Right? And I think working with established institutions, not thinking of AI and AI governance as a nationalist thing, although there's a lot of pressure to think of AI as part of your national strategy, it should not be limited to borders in that way. We do need an international cooperation around how we're governing this technology, so smaller companies with smaller countries with smaller GDPs are able to actually benefit, and their citizens are able to benefit from these technologies as well. And by using some of these established institutions, we're ensuring that the development and deployment of the technology is respecting human rights, it's respecting democratic processes, et cetera. So that's some of the ways that we're thinking about this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will address a question on government. As mentioned by Yusek Tumpalan from the Department of Finance here, I did enumerate several interventions of the Philippines, and I was formerly also with the Department of Budget and Management. And what we did was the largest portion of our budget has to be allocated for education purposes. Now, with respect to why some countries are not, as I mentioned earlier, ADB works with countries and develops a dialogue with respect to the country partnership strategy and what the priorities of that country would be at the moment. But so it really also is demand driven. But at the same time, it's good to know. I'm the chairman also of the Development Effectiveness Committee. So we do independent evaluations, and we recently evaluated the education sector. The education sector work that ADB is doing was one of the highest performing. This is largely knowledge products, technical assistance as well. So it really depends on the demand of our country partners. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Jenny?
So on the question on democracy, what I've been trying to focus on is really the importance of workplace democracy here. So really having the strong institutions in place to ensure that this technological transition is managed in a way that benefits all of society. And that's going to happen when you have workplace democracy. So you need these strong institutions, you need strong civil society, you need the trade unions, you need the employers' organizations, but most of all, you need government as a convener to bring all these parties together. So this is really fundamental for a successful transition. With respect to the issues of skills, certainly, I mean, I'm a mother myself, I have children, the importance of critical thinking, lifelong learning, this is really important. But I also try to emphasize in a lot of my talks, we not only just need skills training for the workers, but we also need skills training for managers and for business organizations. There's a lot of hype around AI right now. There's a lot of sales, it's a huge industry, there's a lot of money to be made, and a lot of companies need to be very astute in their decisions about how they integrate these systems in a way that works for them. You see this particularly in the use of AI in human resource management. Yes, it can be very good for going through CVs, but robots interviewing people, it's questionable. So the more that managers and business leaders can be trained on the benefits of AI, the limits of AI, how to use AI, all of that can play a really important role in a good integration of AI at the workplace.
Thank you. And then, Maumei.
So two questions that I can relate. I can talk about governments. I'm happy that I'm not dealing with that. But working with children, people outside the workforce, because these are going to be in the workforce soon. I want to emphasize one thing about AI systems. AI has been around for many years. This time around, there are two things happening. I want you to pay attention to these two important dimensions of AI. Number one, AI is essentially a learning technology. In many cases, co-learning. In some cases, self-learning. Right? This is different from the previous generations of AI systems that were rule-based, rules were fed by humans. So that is something to pay attention to. And that has implication. Number two, this is the first time AI is coming after white-collar workers. This is the first generation of automation we as white-collar workers, knowledge workers, are on the chopping board. The previous waves of automation were largely towards, directed towards blue-collar workers. So these two, what does it mean? Number one, lifelong learning. Learning starts from the really early ages. And one thing, if you communicate with your kids, I have kids, they know a lot more about these things, right? There are two things I can tell my kids, my students, is we give them the guardrails. AI guardrails, which is the space that is justifiable if you move. And we do have things to share with them as the previous generation, right? All these questionable uses of AI systems. AI is biased. If you just rely on AI, it's going to make all these types of problems. Number two, workforce. The workforce that is already in, people who already been in the workforce. The digital divide between different generations has been around for many years. This is not the first time we are experiencing it. I did research on social media 15 years ago. There were like all these really big tensions between managers, baby boomers at the time, many of them are gone, and digital natives, people like myself. So this is not the first time we are going through that. And the biggest thing that organizations that were successful to deal with that transformational change through technology, they were successful in building dialogue between different generations around these technologies. The old generation can learn a lot from the new generations. The use of AI, the best AI literacy comes through experimentation. These systems do not come from the organizations. We do have this concept of consumerization. You use the best, you experiment with the best technology, state-of-art technology in your hand before it gets to the organizations. Right? So many kids, before getting to their actual career, they already know a lot about these technologies. Within the AI guardrail, we can reinforce, justifiable uses.
Thank you so much. We have the closing remark on behalf of Grace will have the closing remark. Before inviting her, let me share my takeaways from our discussions. We are preparing this event to know what's the impact of digital technologies on our jobs and educations. If you want only the information and knowledges, you don't have to come to this Milan. You can just rely on the AI. Using AI, you can get the information and knowledges. Why you are here? Networking, communicating, knowing each other, and they seek the collaboration. That's the area AI cannot replace ours. According to the Mohammed's presentation, there is a guy, the core, he's the bottom of the line, but his role is great, networking. That's your role. Please take these takeaways, share with me. Please bring this idea to your home. Thank you. Let me invite Grace for your closing remark.
Thanks, Byung-Shi. Good morning, everyone. It is a great honor to join this knowledge event and deliver the closing remarks. Let me begin by thanking all of our distinguished speakers and panelists for such an engaging session. The discussion today offered very important insights into how developing Asian economies can shape a digital transformation that uplifts workers and enhance productivity to drive a robust and sustainable development. Today's two presentations were very inspirational. Jenny reminded us that AI transformation presents a complex challenge to middle-income economies, especially in developing Asia. Some jobs are at risk of being replaced, while others still yet need to fully reap the benefits. She emphasized the need of timely and proactive government intervention, developed in close consultation with stakeholders, including workers and employers. And Mohammed offered a very compelling vision of human-AI symbiosis. He emphasized the importance of building collaborative capacities between human and AI, opening new opportunities and enabling adaptation to evolving nature of work. His message on human-AI complementarity reminds us of the urgent needs to rethink education, skills, and job designs, not only for the current workforce, but also for the next generations. In the panel discussion, Wilson brought forward from the private sector perspective. He highlighted the challenge of AI device, and Justin shared views from the public sector, drawing experience from the Philippines. She emphasized the importance of closing connectivity gaps and also strengthening digital governance. Both of them highlight the urgent needs of public-private collaboration to build a strong and adaptive skill ecosystem, and also policy engagements to help bridge the gaps in capacity and opportunity. Echoing today's discussion, I would like to share that ADB will launch its flagship report, Asian Development Policy Report 2025, on Tuesday, 6 May. This year's theme is similar, harnessing digital transformation for good. This report shows how digital technologies, when combined with the right policies, can expand access to services, drive innovation, create jobs, and enable business, delivering various benefits in terms of inclusion and environmental sustainability. At the same time, it also emphasized that if unmanaged or not managed well, digital transformation might exacerbate inequality and environmental sustainability. So addressing those challenges together with digital transformation, policy intervention is needed to address equity and market failures. So basically, this report provides practical policy guidance tailored to different country circumstances to help economies in developing Asia managing digital transformation in a way to promote inclusive and sustainable development. You are warmly invited to join us for the launch on 6 May. In Amber Room 5 and 6 on Tuesday morning to explore these findings in more details. Overall, the digital leap is not simply about the speed and scale, but also about the direction and design. Today's dialogues make it clear developing Asia need to invest in people, build the right institutions and infrastructure, and govern responsibly. In doing so, digital transformation can become a powerful tool to drive a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable prosperity. Thank you all for coming today, and then thank you to our speakers, panelists, to making today's event a success.
Thank you so much for panelists and the speakers and our audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much.